certificate.
Oh,
I
good.
think so.
And here's my warning. Contains old-fashioned parenting.
Right.
Yeah.
Different times, everyone.
Times.
Contains scenes of different times. Father Simon, I've long been troubled by something that occurred many moons ago. What?
Who's
What's
this
their
from?
name?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. Today's confession comes from Roger.
Roger.
Roger says, Father Simon, I've long been troubled by something that occurred many moons ago. Back in 1990, I was working for a big regional newspaper group. I was a young reporter on a low wage, just venturing forth into the sometimes rocky seas of journalism. A glittering career lay ahead of me, I thought. But to reach it, I had to navigate a route through magistrates' courts, interminable and mighty tedious town council meetings, charity galas, church fetes, golden and diamond weddings, agricultural shows, in which every result had to be laboriously and accurately transcribed for the delight of the entrants. My daily commute had to be managed like a military exercise. My paltry salary didn't support me buying a car, so the daily journey from home to desk was enabled via the marvel of joined-up public transport, the bus. In fact, 3 buses, and if one was delayed or cancelled, the domino effect was obvious. So I did a lot of running, panting and sweating as I dashed from one stop to another. There was one fellow passenger on the buses that I dreaded. His name was Thomas, and he was 5. Thomas was an angelic-looking moppet with a mass of black curly hair. Thomas was my nemesis. Thomas was a monster. Thomas's mother was in her late 20s, early 30s, who thought the behaviour of her pride and joy was a source of amusement for the rest of the captive passengers. Ugh. Clearly she was oblivious to his malevolence, which was manifested in screaming at me, clawing at me, pulling hair, mine, tearing newspapers, mine, wiping sticky fingers on a brand new suit, also mine, and generally revealing himself to be the spawn of the devil. Thomas? I don't think so. His real name was Damien Thorne. It's for younger younger listeners. That's Omen. Damien Omen 2. Now, on one very hot day, I was sitting on the back seat of the single-decker bus next to the emergency exit. In other words, right at the far right hand at the rear of the bus. My jacket was off, laid on my lap. The sleeves of my pristine white shirt were rolled up. My tie was loosened. My bag was on the floor between my feet. It was the summer. I was on my way home. I was happily roasting in summer sunshine. And then it happened. Thomas and Mum got on in a half-empty bus. She chose to sit next to me. Thomas was sucking on a straw, poking out at the remnants of a bottle of Cherryade, but he was also strangely muted, which, given his past behaviour, I thought was rather odd. I put it out of my mind and closed my eyes to enjoy the sun and the soporific vibration of the bus's engine. Quite suddenly I became aware of a growing warm wetness on my hands. Yes. Thomas had honked the contents of his Cherryade bottle onto my folded-up jacket. Then, to make sure I'd got the message, he projectile vomited whatever was left onto my white shirt. I should have mentioned
infuriating.
Dinner time.
His mortified mum apologised and, amidst trying to clean up her child, offered to dry clean my clothes. I demurred, slid out of my seat, dripping Cherryade and random solid bits of whatever Thomas had eaten previously, minced my way down the aisle to a seat where I sat, damp and sticking of cherry vomit, and wondering how on earth I would make it home. How I hated that kid. So the finale comes a few months later. One evening, Thomas and his mum get on the bus. It's now winter. It's dark, and there was condensation on the windows. They sat several seats in front of me, and Thomas began his routine of bad behaviour. First, he wiped the condensation of the window, and then wiped his wet hand on the back of the person in front of him. His mother moved him away from the window. Then he made a grab for someone's umbrella. His mum, quite irked now, told him forcibly to resist. He did not. Then, standing on tiptoes and reaching upwards, his fingers strained to reach the strip bell. I think everyone, do you remember the long black strip which was in the ceiling when you touched it? That was the bell for the bus to stop. I heard the words I'd been praying for. If you press that bell, Mummy will smack you, Thomas. In an instant, my hand flew up, and with glee, pressed the bell not once but twice. The reaction from Thomas's mum was one of shock, disappointment and barely controlled fury, which manifested itself in her palm connecting with his buttocks. The slap rang through the upper deck. As I said, this is old-fashioned parenting.
Different times.
Different times.
Then the sobbing child was made to sit on his stinging backside, all the while craning his head to look disbelievingly and accusingly at me. Not long after this shameful act of revenge, I got a pay rise that allowed me to buy a car.
Oh, right.
Thus my days of public transport came to an end, and I never saw Thomas again. Father Simon and your good team, I beg forgiveness for seeking vengeance on a mischievous 5-year-old child and hope that my spontaneous act of revenge can be expunged from my conscience. Yours sincerely, young Roger, the journalist. So, well, you know, obviously we look to Sister Katie for responsibility in these matters.
Yeah, starting by saying different times. That's where this becomes a little bit tricky. I think, Roger, that you probably could have done more in speaking to the mother and saying, look, I'm not okay with this. Can you stop your child from doing this? But at the same time, it feels like she was trying to control him and it just wasn't going very well. And I hate nothing more than when there's spare seats, you know, on the train or on the bus and then somebody sits next to you. Why do that?
What is on that?
So
Yes.
I'm going to forgive you, Roger. I am.
Okay, brother from another guy.
I mean, clearly reprehensible, Roger, but let's be honest, all of us were very much in your corner there. Every man jack of us was going, yep, I would have done the same.
Because all he's done is actually press the
That's
button.
all he's
Yeah,
done.
that's
That's
all
all
he
he's
did.
done. Is that a crime? No, it's not a crime. It's fine to press the buzzer. And who gives a young child cherryade on a bouncy bus? That's never going to end well, obviously. So I'm going to forgive.